We got to go through this daf very quickly today. We are on daf Samach Beis Amid Aleph. The Gemara yesterday had quoted Rav Yosef as saying that the Mizbeach was augmented in the second temple from the size that it originally was in the first temple. In the first temple, the floor dimensions of the Mizbeach were 28 by 28 amos. And in the second temple, they made it larger, 32 by 32 amos. And the question is, why did they do that? So the Gemara Rav Yosef had answered and said it was because they needed more space to consume the sacrificial material more in the second temple. So the Gemara said, what are you talking about? There was more sacrificial material because there were more people that came on a daily basis during the first temple period than the second temple period. So the Gemara answered, that's true, but there was more efficient combustion during the first temple because a fire came from heaven and helped consume the sacrifices. There was less efficient combustion in the second temple period, and therefore they needed a larger space to combust whatever was up there. So now the Gemara is going to challenge that, and it says on the top line, Omer of Yosef, Lav Hainu D'Tanya, he says, this doesn't make sense, what I just said. In other words, the Gemara says that Rav Yosef had developed amnesia and had forgotten a lot of his teachings. And then later in life, he was reminded of what he had said, and sometimes he questioned even what he had said previously. And he said, this doesn't make any sense. What I'm quoted to have said as to why they needed to make the Mizbeach larger in the second temple. The Tanya, because we have one brisa that says, we have a brisa that says as follows, Vayachinu al Mizbeach al mechono sav. The brisa in the pasuk in Sefer Ezra says that they prepared the Mizbeach according to its proper dimensions or its proper fixture. And this tells me that they really were able to achieve knowing its exact dimensions even better than was previously known. But v'hakesiv hakol bichsav miyad Hashem alai hiskil. But one second, how can that be if King David says that everything was provided to me by an image of God, and therefore all of the dimensions of the future temple were shown to me? So how could, on the one hand, King David be shown the exact dimensions of the temple, and then Ezra says later on that we had a better understanding? So the Brisa reconciles it and says, Ela Omer of Yosef Kra Ashkach V'Darash, or Ashkachu V'Darush, that they found the pasuk in the times of Ezra that they were more effectively able to expound upon than what was known in the first temple. Yes, it's true that the dimensions were given properly to David and to Shlomo, but this pasuk tells me that Vayomer David Zehu Beis Hashem Elokim V'zeh Mizbeach La'olah Yisrael. David is quoted as saying that this shall be the house of God, and this shall be the altar as a burnt offering for Israel. And the pasuk clearly is connecting the altar to the house itself, to the temple structure itself. Ki bayis, ma bayis shishim ama, af mizbeach shishim ama. And therefore that teaches me that what David was alluding to, what had been intimated to him by Hashem, but which was not taken advantage of in the first temple, is that although I've given you the specifications to build the Mizbeach 28 by 28, you have the liberty at your discretion to expand the Mizbeach in size up to 60 amos, which is the dimension, the length of the temple courtyard. So therefore, you have every right to expand the Mizbeach as you see fit. In the times of the second temple, Ezra said, based on this pasuk, we now have a better understanding of what our rights are as far as the Mizbeach than perhaps what they had during the first temple, the architects in the first temple. However, we're not going to use the full 60 amos by 60 amos ability. All we'll need is to expand it an extra 4 amos. So from 28 we'll go to 32.
But they could go to 60.
They could have gone to 60, theoretically. And maybe that's what it'll be in the Messianic age. Who knows? So now the Gemara says, right, everything is supersized today, right? So Bishlama, right, Bishlama bayis min karat surasa, ela mizbeach mina yadi. So now let's ask a question about what was going on during the Second Temple. I can certainly understand how they knew where the walls of the temple were supposed to be, because even though the first temple was completely destroyed, they could still find traces of the foundation of the walls. And they would just build the new walls on top of the foundations of the old walls. But where did they know how to position the Mizbeach inside the courtyard? So Amar Rebbe Lazar, Ra'u Mizbeach Banui, Umichael Hasar Hagadol Umedo Makriv Alav. And the answer is because they had prophetic vision. They were able to see, almost like a superimposed vision in the temple courtyard, of a built altar, probably like a ghost-like altar, with Michael, the archangel, standing over it and offering karbanos. V'Reb Yitzchak Nafcha Amar, Eiforo shel Yitzchak ra'u shamunach ba'oso makom. And Rabbi Yitzchak says, again, prophetically, they saw sort of like a superimposed image of the ashes of Yitzchak on the place where the Mizbeach needed to be, because that's where our tradition tells us that the proverbial ashes of Yitzchak after the Akedah are parallel to where the Mizbeach is. V'Rabbi Shmuel bar Nachmeni Omar, Mikol habayis kulo harichu reach ketoris, and misham harichu reach evarim. Reb Shmuel has a unique interpretation. He says instead of their sense of vision, they use their sense of smell. They smelled throughout the courtyard, and they smelled the smell of incense. But when they got to the area of the Mizbeach, they smelled burning animal parts. And that's how they knew that the Mizbeach was supposed to be there. Of course, there's tremendous depth to this Gemara and the various opinions, but we don't have time to go into that now.
Who were the Nevi'im here that had this vision?
Well, that's a great question. You're going to see now in just a second. Amar Rabba bar Barchana Amar Rabbi Yochanan Shalosha Nevi'im Olu Imohim Min Hagola. Rabbi Yochanan is quoted as saying that there were 3 prophets that came out of the diaspora of Bavel and were able to teach them what needed to take place for the construction. Echad Sheheid Lahem Al HaMizbeach, Ve'echad Sheheid Lahem Al Makom HaMizbeach, Ve'echad Sheheid Lahem Shemakriven Afal Pi She'ein Bayis. The first prophet, now traditionally we are told that the last 3 prophets that lived into the Second Temple period are Malachi, Haggai, and Zechariah. So whether it's referring to these 3, it would seem to be, although it doesn't state their names explicitly over here. But one prophet testified that the altar can be of larger size. The second testified where exactly the altar is supposed to be. And the third testified that you can build the altar first without having the fully constructed temple walls, and you're still able to be bringing karbanos. And this, of course, raises the question about even today whether we can bring the Korban Pesach. There's a lot of Talmudic literature on that. Now, B'masnisa Tana Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov Omer, the Brisa says it slightly differently from the way Rabbi Yochanan cited it. Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov says, Shlosha Nevi'im Alu Imoy Min Hagola, Echad Sheheid Lahem Al Mizbeach Ve'al Makam HaMizbeach, Ve'echad Sheheid Lahem Shemakriven Afal Pi She'ein Bayis, Ve'echad Sheheid Lahem Al HaTorah Shetikasev Ashuris. He says that the 3 prophets testified about the following. The first prophet testified about the altar, both that it can be expanded and where it's supposed to be positioned. The second prophet told them that you can offer karbanos on the Mizbeach even before the temple is fully built. And the third prophet told them that from now on, the script that we're going to use to express ideas in the Sefer Torah and in other holy writ will now be Ksav Ashuris and not Ksav Ivri, the more ancient writing. Tanu Rabbanan, Keren v'chevesh v'yesod v'ribua ma'akvin, but midas orko, midas rachbo, midas kamaso, ein ma'akvin. The Brisa now says what we've been studying up until now in a slightly different fashion, but it's the same idea. The corners on top of the Mizbeach, those protruding corners, the ramp, and the yesod, the protruding foundation of the altar, and the squareness of the Mizbeach are all absolutely necessary. And if there's any compromise on those, then the Mizbeach is not kosher for karbanos. However, the numerical dimensions of the Mizbeach are not ma'akev, are not necessary to be fixed, such that if the Mizbeach would be a little bit larger or a little bit smaller, as long as it's proportionate to the original dimensions, right? It still retains its squareness, so then it's kosher. Mina from where do we know this? Amar Rav Huna Amar Kra HaMizbeach. Kol makom shenemar HaMizbeach la'akev. Because when the Torah describes what we've mentioned, the corners, the ramp, the yesod, and so forth, it calls the Mizbeach the Mizbeach, ha-Mizbeach, which indicates that it must be exactly this way. But when it comes to the dimensions, it doesn't say ha-Mizbeach with a hey. So now the Gemara says, Elame'ata, kior l'Rebbe v'sovev l'Rebbe Yossi b'Rebbe Yehuda hachanami dema'akev, dichsiv v'nasato osa tachas karkov ha-Mizbeach milamata. He says, according to these two Tanoim, then there are other accoutrements to the Mizbeach that are also absolutely necessary. According to one Tana, that would be the laver, and according to Rabbi Yossi, Rabbi Yehuda, it would be the sovev. Now, what is the sovev? The sovev is the ledge that is halfway or 6 amos up from the ground. Remember, we learned that there's a ledge that causes the Mizbeach to taper inwards so that the Kohanim can walk on that ledge all around the Mizbeach. Now, according to these two Tanoim, one would say that the kior is absolutely necessary, and the other one would say that the sovev is absolutely necessary, because each one of them looks at this pasuk which has the word hamizbeach and the word karkov, and depending upon your definition of the word karkov, we'll see that each one would associate that with the word hamizbeach. The Tanya Izahu Karkov, as the Brisa says, what is the definition of the word Karkov? Rebbe Omer Zeh Kior, Rebbe Yossi Rebbe Yehuda Omer Zeh HaSovev. So Rebbe says it's the laver. So if the laver is associated with HaMizbeach, so then that too should be absolutely necessary, without which you can't offer karbanos. And according to Rebbe Yossi Rebbe Yehuda, the ledge, the Sovev, should be absolutely necessary, without which you can't offer karbanos. Is that true? So the Gemara says in. Yes, it is true. The Tanya Oso hayom nifkema keren mizbeach veheviu bul shel melach v'sitemuhu v'lo mipnei shekasher la'avoda ela shelo yera'eh mizbeach pakum. He says, the Brisa tells us, this is from Maseches Sukkah, it tells us the famous story that we've learned before together, that in the times of the Second Temple, there was once a Sadducee, Kohen Gadol, who did not accept the oral tradition that on Sukkot you're supposed to do a water libation. So when he got up to the Mizbech to do the water libation, he poured the water on his feet instead of onto the correct place in the altar where the water is supposed to be poured into. So people detected it. He couldn't fool the public. So everyone started pelting him with their esrogim. Everyone took their esrog and started throwing like they were trying to, knock him off the Mizbeach. And boy, that must have been painful. So anyway, that's going to leave a mark. So anyway, so what happened was that the Gemara relates that somebody threw their esrog so hard that it caused a chip of one of the corners to break off. And so in order to allow the sacrificial order to continue, they had to take a fistful of salt and I guess mix it with water and other ingredients to act as a plaster so that they could fill in the broken chip from the corner. And why was that necessary? Not just for cosmetic purposes, says the Brisa, but because without that patch, the Mizbeach would not be usable to bring karbanos. Shekol Mizbeach she'en lo keren v'kevesh v'yesod v'ribu apostle. Because any Mizbeach that does not have the four corners, or the ramp, or the yesod, or squareness is puzzle. And Rabbi Yossi Rabbi Yehuda Omer Afazav, and Rabbi Yehuda says, not only are those things necessary, but the ledge, the Sovev ledge, as well. So you see very clearly from this Brisa that Rabbi Yossi Rabbi Yehuda backs up his statement that the word Karkov means the ledge, because since the word HaMizbeach is associated with the Karkov, if you don't have a Karkov, which he defines as the Sovev, then the Mizbeach is not kosher. Tanu Rabbanan, Ezehu Karkov, Bein Keren LeKeren Makom Hiluch Raglei Kohanim. So the Brisa now tells us, what is the definition of the word Karkov that the Torah says? The Torah talks about in relation to the Mizbeach. And this Brisa says that it is the walking space between the corners on the top of the Mizbeach where the Kohanim would walk. So there are two problems with this statement, as the Gemara is going to address. One problem is that previously we defined the Karkov as either being the laver or the ledge that's halfway up the Mizbeach, not on top of the Mizbeach. But the second question that the Brisa deals with is that let's think about it for a second. Yesterday you learned in the daf about the ma'aracha. Does anyone remember that word ma'aracha? What is the ma'aracha? It is the actual space on the top of the mizbeach where you could place the wood and the sacrificial items to burn. How large was that space? If you recall, it was 24 by 24. Now, how much is the actual floor space of the mizbeach? It's 28 by 28. Where are those missing amos? So the answer is that the corners take up 1 amma, and then you need an extra walking space for the Kohanim to walk beyond the corners, because if the Kohanim only have that 1 amma in between the corners to walk, once they get to a corner, they're going to hit that protruding horn, and they won't be able to proceed. So there has to be an amma even within those protruding corners that allows the Kohanim to walk around the ma'aracha. So it turns out that there are 2 amos on all sides for the Kohanim to walk, so that they can stoke the flames of the ma'aracha and take care of what's going on top of the mizbeach. So the Gemara says that what's problematic is that you've said that the space between the corners, which is called the karkov, is the place for the Kohanim to walk. So the Gemara says, Atu ha-Kohanim ben keren lekeren havu azli. How could the Kohanim walk there? As soon as they get to a corner, they're going to bang into the protruding corner that's sticking up. So ela ema umakom hiluch raglei ha-Kohanim ama. So rather what the Brisa means is that the karkov really addresses the 2 amas on each side. It is both the space between the corners and the further amma that goes further in to allow the Kohanim to walk around. So the Gemara now says, let's go back to that first question. How can you tell me that that's the karkov? V'haksiv tachas karkubo milamata ad chetzio. The Torah says that there's supposed to be a meshwork on the side of the altar just underneath the karkov. Now, how can that be? How can that be referring to the space that's on top of the mizbeach if we're talking about placing meshwork on the side of the mizbeach that goes down to the halfway point, going vertically on the mizbeach? That doesn't make any sense. So Amar of Nachman bar Yitzchak trei havu chad lenoi v'chad lekohanim delo nishtarku. So the answer is that there are 2 karkovs. One karkov is underneath the ledge, the sovev, which is that meshwork which was placed underneath it for adornment. And the other karkov is a tiny lip that would be going upwards all around the sides of the mizbeach, so that if a kohen slipped, he wouldn't fall off the side of the mizbeach. That little lip would catch him. So there are 2 terms for the word. There are 2 places on the mizbeach that are called karkov, because the word karkov ultimately means like a bit of a side protrusion. One is the meshwork that's just underneath the sovev, and the other one is the lip that protrudes upwards for the Kohanim not to slip while they're on top of the mizbeach. Now, midas arko, midas rachel, midas komaso, ein ma'akvin. But let's recall what the Brisa had told us, that as long as the mizbeach is proportionate and retains its squareness, the actual dimensions, the numerical dimensions, are not ma'akiv. It can be bigger or smaller. Amar Rabbi Mani u'v'lvad shelo yivchasenu mimizbeach sha'asa Moshe. But that's provided, says Rabbi Mani, that you do not make it smaller than the mizbeach that Moshe constructed, the copper mizbeach. V'kama, and how large is that? So Amar Rav Yosef Amma. Rav Yosef says it's 1 square amma. So machaku alei 5 amos orech v'chamesh amos rochav ravua yiyah mizbeach. How can you even suggest that? Doesn't the Torah say that it's supposed to be 5 by 5? How can they mocked Rav Yosef and said, how can you tell me that the mizbeach that Moshe made is 1 square amma when the Torah explicitly states its dimensions as 5 by 5 on top? So Amar le Abaye dilma makom ma'aracha ka'amar mar. So Abaye said, Rebbe, perhaps what you meant to say is the ma'aracha on top of Moshe Rabbeinu's copper mizbeach was 1 square amma, because even though it was 5 by 5 in total, remember we said you need 2 ammas on each side for the karnos and for the walking area of the kohanim. So if you deduct 2 ammas on each side of a 5 by 5 mizbeach, you'll only be left with 1 square amma in the center. So Amarle, Mar de Gavar Rabba Hu Yada Mai Ka'amina. So Rav Yosef said, you, Abaya, are a great man, and therefore you're able to better understand what I meant. That's exactly what I meant. But Kari Alayhu B'nei Keturah. But he pronounced about those who had mocked him, thinking that he had made this blatant error. He said, you guys are the B'nei Keturah. Now Rashi says, who are the B'nei Keturah? They are, Avram Avinu took a second wife after Sarah died, and this was Keturah, so he had other children. So, in other words, what he was basically telling them is, you guys are not my brothers, you're my cousins. In other words, if you were my brothers, my true kin would understand what I mean. But you're distantly related, and so therefore you're not as connected to my words. That's one explanation. I think also the word keturah means kishura, it means tied up. You guys are all tied up in a knot. You're so closed-minded, you didn't even bother to think about what I really meant. And that's what I think he was also stating to them. Now, B'nei Achte de Rebbe Tarfon Havu Yasvi, Kamei de Rebbe Tarfon. So now a related story is that Rebbe Tarfon's nephews were sitting in front of him in the Beis Medrash. And as Rashi says, they were sitting there like golems, not saying a word. And so Rebbe Tarfon was getting annoyed. He's talking and learning, and they're not responding at all. So Pasach va'omar va'yosef Avram va'yikach isho shma yuchni. So he quoted a pasuk, and he said that Avram went ahead and proceeded to take another wife. Whose name was not Keturah. He misquoted the pasuk and he said her name was Yuchni. So Amri Lei Keturah Ksiv. They said, uncle, the pasuk doesn't say Yuchni, it says her name was Keturah. So Kari Aleim B'nei Keturah. Finally you open up your mouth, you B'nei Keturah. In other words, again, you're so withdrawn and tied up that you weren't willing to volunteer any information until I had to make a flagrant error in order for you to speak up. Amar Abaya Bar Huna, Amar Rav Chama Bar Guria, Gezirin Sha'asa Moshe Orchan Ama V'Rochvan Ama V'Obin Kemachak Godesh Sa. That the Moshe Rabbeinu made 2 pieces of wood every day that would go on the Ma'aracha as fuel for the fire. And they were 1 square amma, like planks, and they were very thin. They were thin as the stick that is used as a leveling instrument to level off a dry measure. So Amar Rabbi Yirmiyah ba'ama geduma. And Rabbi Yirmiyah says each piece of wood was slightly less than an amma in order to make room for the fire to burn beneath it. Amar Rav Yosef alav hainu titanya al ha'etzem asher al ha'es asher al hamizbeach shelo yehu etzem yotzim min hamizbeach klum. So Rav Yosef says to Rabbi Yirmiyah, I disagree. They didn't have to be less than an amma. They could be exactly an amma, because the only concern is that they should not protrude beyond that area so that the Kohanim can walk freely. But as long as the Kohanim can walk freely, the pieces of wood could be exactly 1 by 1, which is where the Ma'aracha was on Moshe's Mizbeach. And I think what Rav Yosef is accentuating is that normally, in order for fire to burn freely, the fuel that's placed on top of it can't suffocate the fire. But here, the miracle is that since the fire was coming from heaven as well, Moshe could put 2 pieces of wood that would normally completely suffocate the fire, and still the fire would come from heaven and allow it to burn. Tanan Hasam, Kevesh Haya Lidroma Shal Mizbeach, Orach Shloshim Ushtayim, Al Rochav Sheisesrei. So we know the Mishnah tells us in Midos about the ramp. The ramp was on the south side. It was 32 amos long, 16 amos wide. From how do we know that the ramp was positioned in the south, on the south side of the Mizbeach? So Amar Rav Huna, Amar Kra, V'shachat oso al yerech ha-Mizbeach tzafona, sheyeh yerach b'tzafon upanav b'daram. So the answer is, and I totally botched this line when I gave the daf this morning, but I figured it out finally. So he says, because the pasuk says that the Aaron will slaughter the animal on the right flank of the Mizbeach. That's what the word yerech means. But yerech not only means flank, it also means thigh. So if the Mizbeach is being personified as a human body, the thigh is in the north. But if a person's lying down and his thigh is in the north, so then his head is in the south. And therefore, if the face of the Mizbeach personified is in the south, the Kohanim, when they go to greet the Mizbeach, greet it faceward towards the face, and that's how I know that the ramp is in the south. But Ema Yerach B'tzafon Upanav B'tzafon. But that's only if you envision the Mizbeach as a supine individual, a person. Isn't that a good word? Supine, doesn't that mean he's lying down, right? If he's lying down?
No, supine means lying face.
Lying face up. What's the other word?
Prone.
Prone. If he's, but either way, whether or lying on his side. But in other words, the point being is that only if you envision the mizbeach as lying down. But what if the mizbeach is like a standing person? So then both the face and the leg or the thigh would be in the same place in the north. So Amar Rava Rami Gavra Aape. So Rava says because a person when you put him down, he lies down. So Amarle Abaya Adarabba Tritz Va'osiv Gavra. So Abaya says, but who says that the Mizbeach is like a lying person? Maybe it's like a sitting person. So Amarle Ravua Ksiv. So he said because the pasuk says Ravua, and Ravua means not only square, but it also means lying down, because the Ravua is related to the word Ravutz, which therefore means crouching or lying down. But wait a minute, Vahami boile de mirabea ribue. But that word Ravua is teaching me that the Mizbeach has to be square. Forget about the fact that it could be related to the word lying down. So miksiv meruba. But if it was only teaching me that it has to be square, it should have used the conjugation of not Ravua, but rather miruba, which means squared. But velitaimech miksiv ravutz. But yes, but if it wanted to communicate to me that it means like a lying down person, why not use the word ravutz instead of ravua? So the Gemara answers, Amarle ravua ksiv de mashmahachi umashmahachi. The answer is it uses the word ravua to imply both. It's related to the word squaring, and it's also related to the word lying down. Vitana maisila mehacha. Now we have another brisa that derives that the ramp was in the south from this follows. The Tanya Rabbi Yehuda Omer uma'alosehu pinos kadim. That there's a pasuk in Yecheskel that says that all of its measurements were facing east. And that teaches me, Kol pinos shatapona lo yehu ela derech yamin la mizrach. And this teaches me that any time you're going to be turning and taking measurements, or in any way facing the Mizbeach, the first place that you face is turning right to the east. Now the only way that you can turn right and face east is if you're walking up the ramp that's in the south. Because when you're walking up a ramp in the south, if you turn to the right, you immediately are facing east. But the Ema Smola Mizrach. But one second, the pasuk only says that you're supposed to be facing east. It doesn't tell me that you have to turn right. So maybe the ramp was in the north, and while you're going up the ramp and you turn left, you would face east. So the Gemara says, Lo salka daitach, the Tani Rami bar Yecheskel, Yam sha'asa Shlomo, Omed al Shenem Asar Bakar, Shalosha ponim tzafona, Ushloshim ponim yama, Ushlosha ponim negba, Ushlosha ponim mizracha. Kol pinos sha'ata pona lo yehu ela derech yamin la mizrach. So Rami bar Yecheskel extracts the following teaching from a pasuk that describes the dimensions of the special pool or reservoir that Shlomo HaMelech constructed in the first temple. It says that it was supported by 12 sculptures of bulls. And when it tells you where these bulls were positioned, it says 3 were of these bull sculptures to support the base of the reservoir were facing north, and then 3 were facing west, and 3 were facing south, and 3 were facing the east. So if you notice, we're going in a counterclockwise direction because we're turning right every time we go along the dimensions of the pool. So you see from here that whenever you make any turns in the Beis HaMikdash to do the avodah, you always have to turn right. And therefore, if you have to turn right and you have to face east, the only way that you can accomplish both is if the ramp is in the south. So hahumi boile legufe. But the Gemara says, but how do you know that the pool protocol of taking the dimensions going in a counterclockwise direction always applies, that you always have to turn right? Maybe that's only for the dimensions of the pool, but for temple service, you could turn left if you want. So imkain ponim lamali. So the answer is because there's extra verbiage that it says each time when it changes directions, it says the ponim, facing north, facing west, facing south, facing east. So those extra words tell you that this is dafka the way it has to be in all situations. Shol Rabbi Shimon ben Yossi ben Lakunyas Rabbi Yossi, Omer Haya Rabbi Shimon ben Yochai, Avir Yesh ben Kevesh Lamizbeach. So Reb Shimon ben Yossi asked Reb Yossi, did Reb Shimon ben Yochai truly say that there was a gap between the ramp and the altar? So the ramp did not fully connect to the altar, but it came up to, but not exactly to the altar. So Amar lo va'ata iyata omer kain v'lo kvar ne'amar ve'osisa olosecha habasar ve'hadam ma'adam bizrika af basar bizrika. So he said back to him, how can you not submit to that? After all, the Torah in a pasuk says, you shall make your burnt offerings of both meat and blood. Why does the Torah connect the meat to the blood? It's to tell you that just like you have to throw the blood in order for it to hit the side of the mizbeach from that container that you throw it from, so too you have to throw the meat, you have to toss the meat. And in order to accomplish that, there needs to be a gap between the ramp and the ma'aracha.
Throw the meat onto the fire.
Correct. So Amar lo, Sha'ani Omer Omid B'tzad Ma'aracha V'zorik. So Rabbi Shimon ben Yossi said, but why does that indicate that there needs to be a gap? Maybe he would go to the very top of the mizbeach, stand where the kohanim stand, and throw it into the fire. What's wrong with that throwing? So Amar lei keshu zarik l'ma'aracha deluka hu zarik l'ma'aracha she'ena deluka hu zarik. Avi Omer l'ma'aracha deluka hu zarik. Hasa mishum delo efsher. So he said back to him, he says, listen, you don't need the Torah to communicate that you have to throw the meat on a burning fire. Look, when you would go up to the ramp, up the ramp onto the top of the mizbech, would you encounter a non-combusting ma'aracha or a combusting ma'aracha? You always encountered a fully burning fire. That there was a ner tamid, always burning fire on top of the altar. You don't need a pasuk to tell me that you throw the meat on the burning fire. If you try to place the meat down gently on a burning fire, you'll become part of the barbecue, right? So that's obvious, right? So that can't be what the Torah is communicating. The fact that the Torah is communicating to throw it, it means throw it even in a situation where you wouldn't normally need to throw it because you're not distant. But the point is that no, there was a gap, there was a distance between the ramp and the ma'aracha, and it's the gap between the ramp and the mizbeach. Okay. So Rav Papa Omar Kidam Madam Avir Karka Mafsiko Af Basar Avir Karka Mafsiko. So Rav Papa says you don't have to go into all of this lengthy logical argument. It's very simple. When the Torah connects the meat to the blood, just like the blood hovers when it's tossed out of the receptacle, while it's flying through the air as a projectile, it is going over airspace that is over the ground before it hits the side of the mizbeach. So too, when you throw the meat, it has to actually go over the airspace that goes all the way down to the ground, to be just like the blood before it goes on to the ma'aracha. If there was no gap between the ramp and the mizbeach, then the meat would at no point be over airspace that goes all the way down to the ground, and that's the way I know that there has to be a gap. Amar Rav Yehuda, Shnei Kvashim Ketanim Yotzim Min HaKevesh, Shem Bohem Ponim Liyasod V'Lasovev, Umivdolim Min HaMizbeach Melonima. Now, similar to the ramp, the large ramp itself, there were two side ramps. The ramp on the right side would go up at a different slope angle to go up to the Sovev. The ramp on the left would go at a very, very low slope because it only went up to the Yesod, which that one amma protruding foundation. Now, how do I know this? And also he says that just like the main kevesh also had a gap, so these two, maybe not as large of a gap, but they would, at least a hair's breadth of a gap existed between them and the altar. And how do I know this? Mishum shenamar saviv. Because the Torah says you have to completely be able to go around the Mizbeach without there being anything touching the Mizbeach. Now, Rabbi Avo Amar Ravua. And Rabbi Avo says it's based on the fact that the Torah says the Mizbeach must be perfectly square. If you were to add anything onto the Mizbeach, it would no longer be square. So therefore it had to stand independently of any ramps. The Itzrich L'michtav Saviv, Itzrich L'michtav Ravua. Why does the Torah have to write both Saviv, which indicates that nothing can be connected to it? And why does it have to say Ravua to indicate the very same thing? The Ikasav Rachmana Saviv Havamina Da'agil Ma'agel Kasav Rachmana Ravua. If the Torah would only said the word Saviv, that would imply that the Mizbeach could potentially be non-square as long as nothing else is touching it. And we know that the Mizbeach cannot be round, it has to dafka be square. So the Torah had to write Ravua. V'ikos of Rachmana Ravua, Hava Amina Da'arech V'katin, and if the Torah would have just said squareness is the criterion, and it wouldn't have said Saviv, I might think that it could be rectangular in nature as long as it's squared off on four corners. And therefore, Kosav Rachmana Saviv, therefore the Torah writes that it has to be like a circle, that just like the midpoint of a circle is equidistant from all of its sides, so too the center of the Mizbeach has to be equidistant from all of its sides. Of course, the sides the sides of the square, not necessarily the corners of the square, but the sides of the square. So that indicates that it has to be perfectly square. And this is where we'll hold it for today because of Rosh Chodesh. We weren't able to get any further.